The sun in late August of 1939 didn't feel like a prelude to hell. It just felt hot. It was that thick, lazy heat that smells of ripe plums and dry grass. I was 11 years old. A time when your biggest worry is supposed to be whether the summer holidays are ending too fast, or if the weather is good enough to play outside. I was the youngest, Marcin, the baby of the family, invisible enough to avoid the consequences of my mischief, and visible enough to be spoiled by my mom. Back then, in Kielce, our world was small. It ended at the fence of our garden, where my mother, Maria, ruled over her rows of carrots and her kingdom of clucking hens. We didn't know that the maps were being redrawn in smoke and steel. We didn't know that the radio, which my father listened to with a furrowed brow, was counting down the hours of our lives as we knew them. I remember running. Playing football with my friends was one of my favorite things to do, especially in the last days of summer. It was a Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday. The days blended together in that sweet, sticky way that only happens when you are young and free. But inside the house, the silence was heavy. My father, Ludwig, was a railway worker. He didn't speak much. He was a man of steel and steam, smelling permanently of coal and tobacco. But that evening, he sat at the kitchen table, his uniform cap resting near his untouched tea. He looked at my mother, then at us. He didn't look like the strong man who could fix anything. He looked cornered. "They are preparing trains," he said quietly, "for families. Just in case." Just in case is a funny phrase. It's the lie adults tell children to hide the trembling of their own hands. It was Friday. "They're organizing transport," he said. His voice was rough, like gravel. "For the families, railway privileges. We're sending you east to Karov." Karov. The name sounded exotic to me. I didn't see the terror in my mother's eyes as she wiped her hands on her apron. I didn't notice how her knuckles turned white. All I heard was trip, a train ride, a real journey, not just to the next town, but far away. "Is it a vacation?" I asked. My brother Karol, who was 14 and understood more than he let on, just looked at me with pity. "Sure, Marcin," he said. "A vacation." Packing was a chaotic dance. We couldn't take everything, just what we could carry. Mother packed winter coats, even though it was sweltering outside. "It will be cold before we return," she mumbled. She was a seamstress. She knew fabric, she knew how to mend things. But she couldn't mend the tear that was forming in our lives. My older siblings, Stefan and Oa, stayed behind. They had their own lives, their own spouses. But Mother took me, Karol, and Gabi. We were the cargo. The station in Kielce was a hive that had been kicked over. Smoke, steam, shouting. It smelled of anxiety. A sour, metallic scent that hung under the station roof. My father stood on the platform. He wasn't coming. The railways needed him. "The trains must run," he said, touching my cheek. His hand was rough, calloused, warm. I didn't know then that I wouldn't feel that warmth again for a very long time. "Look after your mother," he told me. It was a man's task given to a boy holding a bag of apples. I nodded, puffing out my chest, proud to be entrusted with such a mission. I felt important. I felt excited. The journey was slow, painfully slow. The train would lurch forward for an hour, then stop for 3 hours in the middle of nowhere. We sat on hard wooden benches, shoulder to shoulder with neighbors we barely knew. My mother passed around slices of bread with lard, her eyes constantly scanning the sky through the dirty window. "Why do we keep stopping?" I asked, bored, kicking my heels against the seat. "To let the military pass," a woman across from us whispered. She was clutching a rosary so tight her knuckles were white. It was the second day when we stopped in a dense forest. The silence after the engine cut out was ringing in my ears. The heat in the carriage was suffocating. We were told to wait. Priority transport on the line. Through the window, I saw it coming. Another train. But this one was different. It wasn't carrying soldiers or tanks. It was filled with children, hundreds of them. Faces pressed against the glass, some waving, some crying. Some just staring, with that hollow look that tiredness brings. "A summer camp transport," someone said, "or an orphanage evacuation." A boy, maybe a year younger than me, saw me. I remember his cap. It was a scout cap, exactly the same as the one I left at home. He saluted, and I responded in kind. For a second, we were just two kids on a grand excursion, passing through the metal belly of Poland. Their train picked up speed, the wheels singing on the tracks as it rushed ahead of us. The tracks hummed and silence returned. We waited. 10 minutes. 20. Then, the ground shook. It wasn't a sharp crack. It was a thud, deep in the earth, like a giant slamming a door underground. Once, twice. The birds in the trees nearby took flight in a sudden, black cloud. "Thunder?" I asked, looking at the clear blue sky. No one answered. The train lurched forward again, crawling now. The engine sounded different, hesitant. We moved slowly, so slowly. 10 minutes later, we rounded a bend, and the adventure died. It was the train, the one with the children. The engine was on its side, like a dying beast exhaling its last breath of steam. The carriages behind it, they were opened up like tin cans ripped apart by a jagged knife. Our train moved past it slowly, agonizingly slowly, as if the driver was afraid to disturb the dead. I pressed my face to the glass, and my breath fogged it up, but I wiped it away. I saw the grass. It wasn't green anymore. It was stained dark. I saw belongings. A teddy bear with one arm missing. A school satchel floating in a puddle of water and oil. And the bodies? They were small. Too small. They lay scattered in the ditch among the wildflowers. Some looked like they were sleeping. Others were broken in ways that the human mind refuses to accept. I looked for the scout. I looked for him desperately, praying I wouldn't find him. I saw a scout cap near the twisted metal of the second carriage. I don't know if it was him. I don't want to know. "Don't look, Marcin," my mother sobbed, pulling me back, her hands shaking so hard she bruised my arm. "Don't look!" But I had already looked. I had seen the train that went first, the train that took our place on the timeline. The German planes had been hunting. They didn't care that it was kids. They didn't care about scout caps. They saw a train, and they dropped their load. All I could think of was that it could have been us. I sat back on the wooden bench. The adventure was over. The excitement of the journey, the slingshot in my pocket, the idea of a holiday in Karov. It all turned to ash. We kept moving east, leaving the smoke behind. But the silence of that forest, it traveled with us. It sat right there next to me, taking up the space where my childhood used to be. The delay saved my life. The tracks led me away from the fire, towards the east. But I didn't know then that while I was running away, someone else was trapped. In the city of Lwów, a 10-year-old girl named Helena was looking at the same sky. And for her, there was no train to catch,